Welcome to the May 18th regularly scheduled Board of Education meeting. Please take a moment to silence your cell phone and then wait one moment because some Girl Scouts from Siebert are going to come up and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Come on up. We'll let you both start us out, okay? Thanks for coming.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well done. Thank you. All right. Jen, can you take roll for us, please?
Absolutely. President Roush.
Here.
Vice President McFarland.
Here.
Secretary Ringgold is here. Treasurer Lauterbach.
Here.
Trustee Blasey.
Here.
Trustee Craig.
Here.
Trustee Horowitz.
Present.
We are all accounted for.
Item 2 is the consent agenda. Item 2.1, approval of the minutes from the April 20th regular meeting. Item 2.2 are resignations as listed in your agenda packet. Item 2.3 are financials, approval of the payment of the school system's bills for the month of March 2026 is listed in the check registers prepared by Lori Holderby in the amount of $8,930,322 is recommended. The distribution of obligations by fund is included in the documentation. And finally, item 2.4 are legal payments as listed in your agenda packet. I have a motion for item 2.1 through 2.4.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by McFarland, support by Ringgold. Any discussion or questions on 2.1 through 2.4? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Item 3 are presentations to the board. Item 3.1, Shining Stars. Penny.
We have 2 shining stars this evening, and I am happy to start with the presentation of a shining star to Brooke. Bontekoe, come on up. Congratulations. And stand right here while we say some amazing things about you. Brooke joined the MPS team in 2023 as a paraprofessional in the cognitively impaired program and then transitioned to our school resource center paraprofessional position, which is the position she currently holds in the district at Dow High. Brooke was nominated for her Shining Star by several MPS colleagues. Among their comments are the following. Brooke, you provide a relaxing, safe space for our students who need to take a break emotionally and mentally. You communicate so well with the counseling staff, keeping them aware of the issues that arise. You regularly model kindness and compassion with vulnerable students, and because of that, they know that they can trust you. You consistently show your ability to adapt, collaborate, and to meet the needs of our students, no matter the environment or the need, whether it be listening ears, whether they need clothes or shoes or hygiene products, you make sure that they get what they need. Another colleague shared that you bring a positive energy to the building every single day. You're fun, kind, you're a great communicator with both staff and students, and most importantly, you are a strong advocate for students, and you always consider their best interest. That's at the center of everything that you do. You go above and beyond to ensure they feel supported, valued, and successful. One more colleague comment. Brooke, you are dependable, proactive, and endlessly supportive. You demonstrate remarkable flexibility, readily adapting to others' needs without hesitation. No matter the task, you come prepared to be counted on, to follow through with excellence. Even during busy times, they're always kind of busy, but most recently with state testing and exams, you've taken the initiative to offer your support, to step in wherever needed, and you just show up to do the job that needs to be done. And you provide that support with joy, kindness, and excellence. Thank you for being a shining star.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Congratulations. Our second shining star is Amy Guzman. Congratulations. Thank you very much. For you, come stand right up here. Let's hear all the great things that your colleagues have to say. Amy joined our MPS team in 1998 as a teacher at Midland High School, which is the position she currently holds. Throughout her tenure at MPS, Amy taught special education, co-taught courses, and co-taught courses in multiple subjects. Beyond the classroom, she served as the National Honor Society advisor, class sponsor, assistant girls track coach, and has also supported student progress through summer school. I think there's more in there, but that's the list for right now. Amy was nominated for a Shining Star by several colleagues, and here are some of their comments. Amy, you are not just a shining star, you are a comet. I don't know who said that, but that's clever. You are deeply caring, you're an involved educator who not only leads National Honor Society, but you've organized really important school movements like the End Period Poverty Movement, and your work with summer school and blood drives doesn't go unnoticed. You work hard to develop strong, supportive relationships with students, and it shows. You have an incredible heart for students and for your fellow staff members, and you work tirelessly to ensure that Midland High is an inclusive and supportive place. You're a strong advocate for students and your peers, no matter the situation. And that's just an everyday thing for you. You also work persistently, again, to help students, even those who need that little extra academic boost and a champion. You garner community resources that are available in the community and help make those connections for students. This colleague says that they've personally witnessed you encourage and assist students in applying for college or trade school, many of whom never thought it was even possible for them in the near future. And so you are a dream maker for kids. You're creating those pathways that help them see themselves be successful. You provide the tools, the confidence, and the resources for students to see their future beyond Midland High School. And finally, another colleague shares that, Amy, you encourage staff to embrace their creativity. You share your lesson plans and ideas with enthusiasm, an enthusiasm that's contagious. You represent teachers in Lansing, as well as being an integral part of the Saginaw Valley League Teacher of the Year Selection Committee. We all know that you're part of the Gerstacker Award Selection Committee and make all of that happen behind the scenes. And again, a Midland High National Honor Society advisor. You typically are there, you can be counted on, and you truly believe in what it means to be an educator who cares about kids. You represent our profession with integrity, pride, and you are a champion for students and staff. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you. Amy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We're not going to forget that one.
Thank you very much. Game 7.
Well, thank you to our shining stars and congratulations.
Tell them they could leave.
That, yes, if you want to leave, go ahead. She's probably going to kill me afterwards for doing this, but I do want to acknowledge that our own superintendent, Penny, has just finished her doctorate and has completed her doctorate in education. So congratulations, Penny. I knew I was going to get that look, but you know, our vision statement, Penny, is that we are prepared with essential knowledge, skills, and character to achieve personal success and positively impact our communities. And you've embraced a tradition of lifelong learning and completed this while also taking on your roles as superintendent, so congrats. Next up, item 3.2, Spotlight on Excellence, Siebert Elementary with Katie Ranke. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Katie Rinke. I'm the principal at Siebert Elementary. I have two different groups with me that I'm going to introduce. Tonight, I'm proudly introducing some outstanding 4th and 5th grade students from a Girl Scout troop, actually. Girl Scout number, go ahead. From Siebert. This spring, these ladies, and they're not all here, but some of them are representing their troop, they have completed work towards a bronze award project by identifying a need within our school community and creating a lasting solution. After surveying and meeting with new to Siebert families and staff, they directed and starred in a Welcome to Siebert video to help our future students and families feel more comfortable and connected before their first day of school. This project has been in the works since November and reflects many hours of teamwork, creativity, leadership, and dedication, and we are so incredibly proud of the positive impact these girls are making in our school community. So I'm going to have you hear from them directly to share more about the project, the steps, and the process in creating it. So I'll invite the girls up with their boards. They'll introduce themselves, their grade, and tell you about a step in the project.
I'm Emery James, and my grade is 4th. Here are the steps that Girl Scout juniors do to earn the Girl Scout Bronze Award. Number 1, go on a Girl Scout Junior Journey or PIN. We earned the Junior Aid PIN by planning and running a meeting for brownies. So what we did is we ran a meeting for a younger, like 2nd, 1st grade troop for brownies, and like we made games and stuff, and so then they can play, and our leaders just like sat in the corner doing nothing.
They led your charge. That's not on the board. We'll work on that.
My name's Addie. I'm in 4th grade, and the second step was build your Girl Scout junior team, which was kind of easy because we've been together since January 2022, since we were daisies. And then number 3 was explore your community. We made a list of things that we noticed in our community that were going well and things that could be improved. And the one that we saw could be improved was that new kids at Siebert, they needed to know more about our school, and that's why we made the video.
My name is Isabella, and I'm in 5th grade. Step 4, choose your Girl Scout Bronze Award project. Unmet need, we noticed that new kids were nervous because they did not know much about our school before their first day. We could solve this problem by creating a video school tour. Make a plan. We hosted a panel discussion with kids who had recently moved here. We asked them about what we should include in our video.
I'm Marlene, and I'm in 4th grade. 6, put your plan into motion. We made a video. Miss Katie helped us put it on the MPS YouTube channel. And then 7, spread the word. We talked to the Midland Daily News about our project and hosted a video party.
All right, and we already have a meaningful opportunity to use this project. I've already shared with a family who has moved here recently from Brazil, who are new enrollee students at Siebert next year. So we already have been able to share this video, and the girls just celebrated with a watch party earlier today at the end of the school year. So they can take any questions you might have about their project.
So I have 2 questions. One is about some of the, it's step 3. So I'm interested in what in what you thought was going well in Midland.
We were seeing some things from, we thought, how the amount of, how there were, the school was running, how students were welcome at Siebert, and how everywhere you go in Midland that there's always a smiling face everywhere you go.
Okay, I have a second question. Do you think, I mean, technically every kindergartner is a new student to Siebert, right? Do you think that you could use your video for incoming kindergartners?
We actually discussed that, considering including a kindergarten segment in our video. But since there's, for kindergarten families at Siebert, there is a kindergarten welcome night, which explains everything the kindergartners need to know. Since it's like a huge number, our video is for a smaller number of students, for like the families, and we thought, since there was already a day where families and new kindergarten students could come to Siebert and figure out what they would be doing that year, we did not decide to include a kindergarten segment in our video.
Well, it sounds like a very well thought out decision.
Girls, how long is your well, we're not done yet. How long is your video?
7 minutes, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. We have 7 minutes.
And we'll also be sending the link.
Do you think we could watch the video right now?
Look, he's putting you on the
Okay.
With some video releases, we'll send it to the board via email.
All right.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you.
We could have had our own little watch party,
I
but that's
know.
okay.
We should have brought popcorn and pop for you and everything. Okay, the next group I want to feature, and our Girl Scout troop can sit down.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Congratulations, girls.
Okay, in addition, we really wanted to recognize one of our 5th grade students and her teacher, Harper Zanotti. She had a creative idea that her teacher supported her with, Mrs. Ecker from 5th grade, in creating a new to Siebert newspaper. I wasn't aware of this. I clarified with Mrs. Ecker, but Siebert Post, this is the first year for this. So this publication features student writing, staff and student spotlights, stories and experiences happening throughout the community. And it has really provided an authentic opportunity to strengthen student writing, collaboration, and leadership skills. And Harper and Mrs. Ecker are here to share a little more about that.
I'm Tracy Ecker. I teach 5th grade at Siebert, and I'd like to introduce Harper Zanotti to you. It's awesome to be able to teach kids, but it's also awesome to be able to help them make their dreams come true. And this was a dream of hers. And she came to me, I don't know, the first bit of school, and she's like, I have a dream to have a school newspaper. And I said, let's do it. And Harper has been an excellent editor, has managed her team of reporters, and has been able to create some amazing newspapers. I did bring some, if I could put them on the table, if you guys would like to see them. There is a picture up there. But this is Harper, and Harper would like to talk for a minute.
Hello, I'm Harper Zanotti, and from a very young age, I've had a really strong passion for writing. And towards the end of the 4th grade year, I had this idea of a newspaper. So in the beginning of the 5th grade year, I collaborated with Miss Ecker to start it, and I think it is really great for students to learn more about researching skills, expressing creativity, and just falling in love with writing.
Awesome.
Do you have any questions for Ms. Harper?
Harper, how often do you plan to put the Siebert newspaper out?
It comes out about every 2 months.
Okay.
Is there a plan in place for next year's incoming 5th graders to keep it going?
I think we've brainstormed about it, but we don't have a legit plan yet.
Awesome. I love that you've brainstormed. That's a start.
We do have some 4th graders involved, so hopefully it's something that we can continue with.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Siebert. Next on our agenda is item 3.3, as we've done in the past months. Have an update from the facility planning team and advisory committee. I also just wanted to say how appreciative I am of our community engaging in this process. You know, people like Suzanne and Joe and others that are in the crowd tonight have really rolled up their sleeves and really engaged in the process and made me think about things differently. And I really appreciate all the work that both Alicia and Amy have done for us on the committee and all the thought that's been put into this. So I will turn over the floor to Stephen and the rest of the team. Hey, Stephen, before you start, Dave, can you turn these screens on?
Our monitors aren't on.
No.
Which one is it?
It's the one on the end. No signal. Oh. No signal.
Oh, technology. Mine just says no. Yeah. We can see, but. Yeah.
We can squint. Sorry. That's all right. I was just looking at the one in the back. All right, Stephen, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Good evening. Thanks for having us again tonight. As a reminder to everyone, Stephen Gunther with GMB, in case you haven't met me already. But we have two great representatives from our steering team with us tonight, and I'll let them do a quick just intro for themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Alicia. I am a part of the steering committee, and I work at the Midland Area Community Foundation. I support our grant making and our community-facing initiatives. I am also a parent of 2 children in the Midland Public Schools district, and I am a foster and adoptive parent. So I feel very lucky and honored to be a part of the steering committee because I do feel I'm learning a lot from the participants of that committee and also able to share perspective that I get to be a part of across our community.
Hi, everyone. Amy Sanborn. Thank you for having us here tonight. I have been a member of the Midland community since 2010. I've had 2 children go through Midland Public Schools. My youngest just graduated last year. Their path was Adams, Northeast, and Midland High. And I work virtually for Archer Daniels Midland, and just been excited to participate in this process and be part of the steering committee. I've learned a lot. My learning actually started last year when we were working on the bond last May, and was just interested in continuing. I feel privileged and grateful to live in this community, and I want to see us move forward in a positive way. So I'm excited to continue on this journey.
Thank you. So as a reminder, kind of how we bring all of these groups together. Nobody is working kind of in a silo, and I think Midland having the Tridge is a perfect representation of how all these groups work together. There's the school board and administration, the steering team, and then the greater Midland community. And we're going to talk about kind of each of these groups as we move forward tonight, but also all of those groups coming together in the center of that Tridge to figure out what this first step is going to look like. And so we've talked in the past about this idea of creating a roadmap. What does this roadmap for MPS facilities look like into the future? And how do we identify what that first step is going to be? Kind of knowing that first step, something needs to happen in November of this year, and what does that first step look like, and how do we come to a kind of a consensus on what that looks like? So what the GMB team worked on, collecting all the different data from each part of those different Tridge bridges, bringing it to the steering team and how we could put different options together for that steering team to evaluate as a starting point so that we could start kind of narrowing down the scope of what that first step is going to look like. So we looked at quite a few different options with them, came back again with revised options, kind of this continuous cycle of looking at different ways that we can approach that first step. So the first option that we talked about with them was what happens if it's just a 1 mil bond? What does a 1 mil bond look for this community and what can be accomplished with it? Prior to kind of starting to establish what some of these things we're trying to accomplish, we did meet with the steering team and have them kind of identify, okay, where do we all feel like we can land as a community, see if it helps narrow down some of that. But also, what is that kind of like one non-negotiable item that we want addressed as a steering team? And it was very, kind of consensus within that room, something needed to happen with Northeast. So that was kind of the starting point for how these options got built onto each other. Represented in the bond bucket are things that can be spent with bond dollars, but also kind of a category of priorities and values and what can be done as you start increasing the total bond amount. And then on the right is just an understanding that there is a huge benefit in pairing a sinking fund or having a sinking fund for a district because it can cover some of those items like buses and instructional technology and also cover some infrastructure items. So this 1 mil bond approach for the steering team was just a recognition that if we want to build a new Northeast Middle School, 1 mil is too short to get there. There's still funding that would be needed to complete the actual project. There's funding that would be needed for demolition. There's funding that would be needed for furniture and fixtures. All of those things, it can't fit into that 1 mil bucket. So what happens if we go to a 1.5 mil bond scenario? We can look at a Northeast and what that looks like to build some type of facility that's going to replace what is Northeast, whether it's at Northeast or it's at a different site. What does that look like to prioritize that building? But along with that, we can add some allowances to get to some of these big value buckets that we kind of have been talking with different groups about. Some infrastructure item and renovation allowance at Jefferson, starting to add a career technical allowance between both of the high schools, and then also looking at that classroom furniture component as well. When we get to a 2 mil bond, you can start checking off more of those priorities throughout the total bond scope, where we can do more for elementary parking or drop off, or more for playgrounds, and more infrastructure allowance that start prioritizing some of those facility assessment items. Also start working in some arts and athletic allowance as well. When we get to the 2.5 mil scenario or option that we had talked to them about, this is where we can start accomplishing maybe some more new build opportunities within the district, whether that's looking at the Carpenter Center and being able to recognize that's an old facility, has high infrastructure needs. What does it look like to address that? Again, being able to provide higher funding to each of these that it can accomplish more of the priorities within those buckets. And one of the things we heard, a lot and talked about was what does it look like to address elementary utilization just from a student count within the building itself, or what does it look like to consolidate campuses or unify campuses throughout a district. And when we start to get to those pieces, that's where we start to push beyond that kind of $2.5 million amount. And so we had talked to the steering team about an option that would be the 3.6, which kind of covers a large scope across the entire district, but does allow all of these priorities and all these buckets to be addressed as part of that, while being conscious of all the other things of programmatic needs in the buildings and facility assessment items and all of that, being able to kind of handle and tackle a lot of that within this bond option that's here. And so a lot of information was given to the steering team, a lot of back and forth and a lot of learning and all of that. So we had to pause for a second and say, we understand, we're here as a steering team to kind of build consensus. And I think the quote on the bottom is a great example of what consensus is, right? It doesn't mean everyone gets exactly what they want, but it means everyone can support a path forward. So how does that steering team finally start creating that path forward?
Thanks, Stephen. I'm here to talk just a little bit about a snapshot as to where the steering committee has been and some of the conversations that we've had. And I'm really glad that I'm following this consensus slide because I think it's a really important term right now. This work is hard, this work is complex, and the conversations that are happening across the steering committee are raw and real, and we are continually coming back to that idea of consensus building. It doesn't mean that 100% of what I desire will be in the formal recommendation once everything is said and done. And so, as it's already been talked about, the steering committee is comprised of a lot of diverse perspectives, a lot of people coming with different experiences into that room. And again, I just think that is worth noting because it's not just about my experience, it's not just Amy's experience. We're really trying to represent a broader community and also learn from our community members as well. And so most recently, our work has centered around conversations and activities that challenge us not only as individuals here in this community, but also it requires us to discuss possible proposals through a community lens. We've been having to ask ourselves what we feel will be a viable proposal in the community's eyes come November. And so I'd like to go to the next slide before I share a summary of where the committee has most recently left our meeting process. I want to make sure that we, as a team here, all of you and people in the room, are grounded in the guiding values that the steering committee utilizes as a bit of our North Star. We have 5 guiding values. The first guiding value is that we will be a CTE and future-ready we will offer CTE and future-ready student experiences. The second is resilience, safety, security, and well-being. The third value, equity and strategic prioritization. The fourth guiding value, phased, responsible facility planning. And the fifth guiding value, transparent stewardship and community clarity. These are at the core of all of our discussions. It is an anchor point for all of us as we are dialoguing about the potential proposals and recommendations that are to come. And while all 5 of these are extremely important, our steering committee recognized that we had to hone in and narrow down to 2 key guiding values that we're going to continually come back to, all of us, as we are putting recommendations forward to say, hey, are we hitting each of these guiding values? And so as you might be able to see, I'm not sure if you can see on the screens you're looking at, but we have 2 priority guiding values of that set of 5. The first one is that it will be a phased, responsible facility planning approach. The second guiding value is transparent stewardship and community clarity. If you go to the next slide, right. Okay, so as I mentioned, during the most recent steering committee meetings, we were tasked with evaluating each of the 5 proposals that Stephen just walked you through. through two different lenses. The first lens was a process around identifying the value alignment of each of the proposals to each of our 5 guiding values. The second activity or process was weighing data that we've all been learning about and engaging in dialogue around over the last several months with what proposal would be most likely for the community to support. And so the first piece of the image on the left, again, it is really hard to read, but ultimately it wasn't a surprise to the steering committee that as the millage proposal increased, so did the strength of the alignment to each of those 5 guiding values. If we were simply going off of the guiding value alignment to the millage proposal, that 3.6 millage increase scenario fulfilled the strongest alignment to the 5 guiding values. We then talked out this idea of, okay, yes, and how are we going to make sure that we are bringing in the lens of data, bringing in the lens of insight to build a proposal that would most likely be able to obtain community support? And so we met in small groups as a steering committee, or within the steering committee, and we prioritized the scenario or the proposal that we believed had the highest likelihood of community support down to the lowest likelihood of support. And ultimately, once that was done, all of the small group responses were tallied up and a sum total was offered to the steering committee at large. And what was landed upon at that point was that either a 2 mil increase scenario or a 2.5 mil increase scenario ranked in the highest viability for community support. Going back to Stephen's point, though, around consensus, we are not there yet. We are not there yet when we have 2 potential mil increase scenarios that are being deeply looked at. And so ultimately, between our steering committee meeting that we had earlier this month and our next steering committee meeting, we realize we have to do more work to obtain additional feedback, additional community insight, additional committee insight, and make sure that we are being very intentional to listen to the diverse stakeholders within our community. And so I'm going to turn it back over to Stephen, who's going to walk through what we have been doing between our last meeting and our next.
Thank you. Great summary. And so what do we do with all of that, and how do we gather more of that information from this broader community? And so like we talked about earlier, nobody is working in a silo to make these decisions. We all are, working on this trade and working together. And so we start at the top here of, steering team meeting number 6. That's where we last all met together. And as Alicia said, we have to find ways to interact, get more feedback from the community, hear people out, and how do we do that? So since that last steering team meeting, we've had the 3rd community engagement session where we've talked a lot about, and we'll have a summary here in a second, about what this will look like to the broader community. There's been a great representation by these two at, PTO meetings and booster groups as a way of, having that back and forth between all of these different groups. We've met with teacher leaders to kind of go through the same types of activities. Principals and administrations have worked through the same type of activities. And then we're looking to put together a broader community-wide survey to try and do this same activity that we're going to talk about in a second that we did with community engagement. Bringing back all of that information to the last steering team meeting that we'll have as a group to then put that recommendation to the board together on what that first step is going to be. So if we look at the community engagement session that we held, we took a lot of those pieces that we talked about earlier and these priorities, these buckets of things that we're trying to accomplish as part of this. And we wanted to know from the community, how do you rank these and what you want to see accomplished? So we gave them these categories to work with and wrestle with, infrastructure replacement, art and music improvements, career and tech ed improvements, instructional technology, parking drop-off, playground site, furniture, athletics, elementary utilization, and buses. So we had all the groups work. We split the community engagement session into multiple, I think we had 6 groups in each session, and rank these 1 to 10. Where does this land on your list as a community member in your group that you're working with, and what needs to be tackled first? Like, where is that priority at? So as summary of the community engagement session, we have 2 charts here. The top one is maximum score of 120 points. Where do these values rank for what needs to be addressed as we work together to build this bond scenario So the top three that the community identified in those 2 sessions were infrastructure, replacement, elementary utilization, CTE, and then working its way down to different priorities. The bottom image there is kind of a heat map of how often did that particular value show up in the ranking that it is listed there. So for example, we had 12 groups total between the 2 community engagement sessions. Infrastructure replacement was ranked number 1, 9 out of 12 times. Elementary utilization was ranked number 2, 6 out of the 12 times. And you can kind of see it work its way across there. So that's just one snapshot, right? Like that's the community engagement sessions that were held. And this information is going back to the steering team so they have an understanding of where is your community landing, at least from those 2 community engagement sessions. But that's only one piece of the puzzle. And then we also had the community they were not allowed to leave until they gave me a sticky note. I tried to collect as many sticky notes as I possibly could collect from everybody. Just as like a gut feeling, where did you stand? Having worked through this prioritization activity of values and understanding those options that we had talked about earlier of like understanding these values fit into this, these values fit into this, and obviously the more values can fit into a larger bond proposal. This is kind of out of the people that were in the room. That's where the breakdown of where people said that they thought they were willing to support. There was a lot of this kind of response in the sticky note too of like, for example, I support the 3.6. That's where I want to go. But I also understand there's a community, and I think the community might be this. So we did see that response back and forth that within trying to collect those sticky notes. So that's where the community engagement session was at. I'll pass it over to Amy for PTO.
All right, thank you. So over the past 2 weeks, Alicia, myself, and another steering committee member, Kathy, we were able to connect with 6 different groups within our MPS district. And in total, we talked to about 45 to 55 community members at those individual meetings. All of the groups were very appreciative of our outreach, very welcoming, and very open and honest with us, I would say, in our conversation. It was really a great experience, I would say, overall. I personally got to go inside some elementary schools that I had never been in before, so that was good. One thing that I will say wholeheartedly that stood out to me as the key themes from all of the groups was, as we move forward, no matter what we move forward with, when we think about our communication strategy and our communication plan, we have to anchor to 3 things: simple, visual, and transparent. So when I think about simple, some of the things that we heard were last go around, there was a lot of information put out there, but it was too dense. It took too much time to kind of comb through. Parents are really looking for those kind of quick hit posters. I'm walking in, walking out of the school real quick, just quick line items to read, not feel like they need to set aside 10 minutes to look at something. The other big one was visuals, and Penny's heard me say this one before. People really are looking for examples, pictures. They want to be able to put themselves in the situation. What does that new furniture look like, possibly feel like? What does a new structure, what might that look like? So visuals were definitely loud and clear. And then the last one was transparency, or being transparent. And we, in one of the sessions, we actually dug a little bit deeper and asked for some examples, because we've heard the word transparent quite often. And so one example that was shared that really resonated with me was around a building structure. So if we are going to build a new structure, let's say hypothetically Northeast is taken down, we're going to build a new 6 through 8 structure, is that parents right or wrong, they are assuming that the structure that's being built is going to be identical to the structure that it's replacing. And by identical, I mean it'll have the same features. It'll have a library, it'll have a main office, it will have classrooms, a cafeteria, etc. So if a new structure that is going to be stood up and it's not going to have the same things that an existing structure does, we need to be extremely transparent about that. So I thought that was very helpful personally. The other thing we heard often was they really want to be clear on what the impact is going to be to them, to their children. So it's a very personal, what is in it for me? And that's just a societal thing, I believe, these days. People are looking for that in lots of different things that we interact with, but that came through loud and clear. And then another conversation we had with the elementary group, which I thought was interesting and hadn't really thought about, is they were wondering, can they have more say in the way the money is spent? So if each elementary school is given an allocation, can they have more say in how that allocation is spent at their school? The needs at Woodcrest, as an example, if new furniture could potentially help them modularize and give them a little bit more space, but yet, say Adams, they don't really need or want that. They have a different need. So I realize that that introduces all sorts of complexities, but just sharing that that's what was brought up from the group. If you go to the next slide. So after the first two meetings, I got the idea, I wanted to put together just a really brief 2-question survey that we could use for the remaining sessions, because I really wanted to try to get more input from people as we move forward with this communication strategy. What would be some good indicators of, one, what would be more meaningful to talk about to help them learn? And then the second question, but you can stay here, you don't have to go to that. The second question is more about the future of communications. But the survey, I was able to give that to about 45 people. Like I said, I missed the first two groups. So we didn't give it to Woodcrest, we didn't give it to the Midland High Booster Club. We got 26 back, which I thought was great. Most of the people filled them out in the session. Some people brought them to my house afterwards, which was great. And so as you can see with that first question, really looking for how the bond, again, impacts them, impacts students, impacts me, building conditions, facility needs, and then the tax impact was number 3. Then if you go to the second question on the next slide around future comms, again, I was trying to get at what kind of messaging, what's important to you, what would be compelling. And again, it was those specific examples, looking for what those visuals and examples will look like. Also at the top there was why the investment now versus later. So those were kind of the top, again, showing what it means for my child was up there as well. So I did also ask the question if anybody's interested in being part of communicating this as we go forward, being part of educating the community, to share their name and contact information. So I'm happy to share that we did collect 15 names of individuals that want to be part of this as we go forward, whatever we go forward with. And again, I would just like to reiterate, each group was very welcoming. They want us to continue to come and speak with them, continue to have dialogue, interested in helping where they can. So all in all, it was time well spent, and I'll just ask Alicia if there's anything else you wanted to add.
No, I think you hit it.
Okay, all right, yeah. So I think that takes us to the end. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both. And I will say, the steering team and Amy and Alicia, fantastic job in reaching out to these different groups and really trying to get that feedback. It is their initiative to do that, and they did just really encouraging to see a group come together and reach out to their community in the way that they have. So as part of that, building that bridge, right, we're here to collect your feedback and your discussion to take back to the steering team. So open it up for Q&A to anybody that's here.
I have a question about future activities. Are you planning to go to more, I know you guys both need more on your plate. Are you planning to go to more PTO meetings? I'll tell you, the reason I ask is because I noticed that neither Plymouth or Central Park, our two Title I schools, are represented in the feedback at this time.
Yeah, so I left that off. Central Park, one of our other steering team members, I need to circle back with her, but she was planning to talk at their PTO meeting. Bethany, I just need to ask her if she was able to do that. And then Plymouth, I did reach out, still hoping to make contact with that school. I don't know if they have any more meetings left, but yeah. And then I'm going to be completely transparent. We had about 2 weeks. I didn't get a chance to make contact with every single group, but tried to get like a little bit of a broad brush. I did personally want to focus. I wanted to make sure we got to all the PTO groups, which I think just missed Plymouth, honestly.
First off, I just want to say thank you because I know you've done a ton of work, and these are super helpful insights. I think especially around really a few things. One is being articulate about phased and responsible investment and transparent investment as being the top 2 out of the 5. I know we want all 5, but to be able to get and drive the group to consensus on 2 is really helpful. I think additionally, the specific examples around being simple, visual, and transparent with our communications really brought to mind a couple of things that we need to consider as we go through this process of like getting to artist and engineering renderings of facility changes, but then also writing down how students are impacted, right? And almost have like a executive summary for every building that people can look at that poster board and say, okay, what is actually going to change in my students or our students' day-to-day life? So thank you. I think a couple questions that came to mind as we think through this. One would be, as you work through the phase 1 options, one of the things that I keep wondering about is we talk a lot about unified community high school. And I think what I'm taking away from multiple months of having these discussions is that when our community, whether it's our board, this committee, when you talk to residents, they understand it and they understand the need for having an efficient sized school so that we can continue to offer all of our programming that we traditionally do, plus add some, and making the student experience even more impactful. But I think we all tend to shy away from having the discussion because it's a hard one. So my question is, and I think this is both a question for the 3 of you as well as the board, is do we need to have that conversation now? And if so, do we need to wait a little bit about what that bond eventually looks like so that we can have the full and clear and transparent conversation about one high school now? Or are there things in this bond package that are being presented that are no regrets? Like we would spend that money now or in the future, regardless of if we have 1 or 2 high schools. And I'm asking that question because I really want us to be as efficient as possible with taxpayer dollars to achieve student outcomes. And if we think a community high school is the best opportunity for our students, then let's have the difficult conversation now.
So I'll just start, I think, with the second question first. I think there are aspects in each of those, and that we're looking to refine that to take back to the steering team of making sure, right, there's flexibility in what is built first in an effort to know if that is that unified high school down the road, we're building that for its purpose today and what it needs to meet, knowing that it can still be utilized in a way to meet the needs of what that future looks like. We did have, and that's where I'll lean on to these two, have the steering team discuss, where do you guys feel like this unified high school is fitting into the plan, just as a snapshot in time, and you understanding the community and where you're coming from. So I'll just let them, if they don't mind, kind of talk about where they saw the steering team land and some of the conversations that were had on both sides of the table.
Yeah, so what I would say is that the steering committee recognizes that that's where we need to get. We need to get there. However, not just yet. More of like a 5-year, 8-year outlook. That time frame is kind of my time frame opinion, but that was the discussion within my group was, 8 years out, something like that, but not at this exact moment in time. And then the other thing that our group talked about was, are there things that we could start doing now, to your point, Phil, to start getting people more accustomed to moving in that direction? As an example, the booster clubs. Could the athletic booster clubs start to do more things together? Could we go back to, a joint fundraising event, which used to be in place several years ago? Are there other opportunities? Like, I know one of people I work with who's in the performing arts space, like the theater groups, could they, and they have already started like sharing costumes and doing a lot of things. So just continuing those kind of joint efforts to start to kind of build more of that community cohesion and, less about this school or that school and one big game every year, and, just kind of moving in that direction. I'll give Alicia a second to comment too, but I do want to say that we did talk about it briefly with the elementary PTOs. It came up in one specifically. Those parents have a very different perspective, which I appreciated, which is when we do go there, it's going to impact my kids, right? The kids that are in elementary school right now are likely the ones that are going to be impacted. So their thought is, let's get there now. Let's start moving in that direction so that the impact on my kids is less, or maybe less, I don't want to say traumatic, that's too strong of a word, but, and honestly, it was said more than once, is that the kids don't care. Mm-hmm. The kids really don't care. It's the parents and the community members that have been in Midland for a very long time. That's where the deep-seated passion comes from, I would say. So I'll let Alicia comment too.
I don't necessarily have anything different to add, although I would say just the kids aren't the ones voting. And so, even amongst the steering committee ourselves, we've had a conversation around unified high school, and it's tense in that room. There is not consensus built in that room. And there's a lot of conversation across that steering committee that comes back to, we need support. We need a yes for this next proposal because our students need it, our district needs it, and the impact of a no is great, right? And so I can't necessarily speak to that eventual, where is it going, but I think that referring back to that third slide, the roadmap piece, where I'm not sure exactly where it fits, but it's not fitting into what we're putting into a recommendation for the next step.
And I'll say, just as observer of the community engagement session, Ann did a great job of kind of explaining an example at one of the community engagement sessions that resonated. And there seems to be a common theme with the more people understand the benefits to the student experience and the classes and stuff like that, there's a kind of a light bulb that goes off of, okay, I get it. And the example was like French class. There's a French class that has 6 people signed up over here and 4 people that signed up over here, well, it's really hard to maintain then 2 French classes. But if we were together, now I can run a section of French. And so like in some of the feedback we received on our sticky notes that nobody could leave without passing back, that was one of the examples somebody provided, was like, okay, I get it. That's then understanding how that impacts students. So the more that people are understanding the benefits to students, the more people are kind of having that light bulb moment. But there is that education piece of all of the important impacts to students of getting there, that just the time to do that.
Stephen, if we were to decide to consolidate the high schools, and if we made the decision today, what's the time frame to get there between land acquisition, planning, construction?
I think in any project, you're probably a minimum, particularly if any project, you're at least 18 months of design plus another minimum 2 years of construction. Then working within the limitations of the bond series and when you get your bond dollars and series. So depending on what bond amount potentially would be there, you're 5 to 6 years before there is the construction of a physical project that meets the design schedule, meets the construction schedule, and meets the bond series schedule of providing that capital to complete the project.
Not less than 5 years.
Not less than 5.
Thanks.
See, this is the part that I really struggle with, right? Because Amy just said the community wants it in 5 to 8 years. And if you go now, you're at least 5 years away. So this is the part that I think the board and would love to have more engagement from the steering committee is really struggling with, is if we all look at the data and think about the experiences that our kids are having in our school and what they could be in the future with community high school, how do we get there in 5 to 8 years? And what has to be true over the next 6 to 18 months and having a community conversation to do so? Because this slide in particular that you put up, where people put a sticky note on their votes, there were 20, I didn't add all these up, but 26 responses. The highest number of responses was the 3.6 mil. Mm-hmm. And I think this is just articulating that once people understand the challenges that the district's facing and the student experience and outcome with those dollars spent, they're saying, okay, well, I can justify 3.6, but it took people so long to get there from an education perspective, right? And if not at all advocating that we go out for 3.6 mils, but if there are outcomes that no foolin' makes sense from an operational and student experience standpoint that are difficult conversations, I'd push us to have those conversations now, I guess.
So I was at the last community session, I believe, and towards the very end, there was a question/comment about what is the plan for the future? And I think everyone agreed after a bit of discussion, whatever we present to the community, we have to be able to tie it to our long-term plan for the future. So if it is a single high school, then we need to be able to indicate this is why we are doing this, say, building northeast on Midland High's property, because we envision a large campus that's easier to secure, something along those lines. So I think that as we move forward, we need to think along those lines as what is our big picture, and then what are our steps to get there with the recommendations from the steering team of what the community wants now and how we incorporate that into our larger vision.
And what the community told us less than a year ago with their vote. And so that is something that continues to come up at the forefront of our conversations as a steering committee. Again, heart and head conversations are very different in all of this.
personally, the ask, right? Like, I mean, looking at that and seeing, you know, those engaged people that came to 3 sessions, that are part of the steering committee, that have gotten a ton of education and asked a ton of questions, they can get to that 3.6. But from a broader standpoint, our community has said no. Like, there is no way that our average taxpayer is going to do that. And so, and I don't think it's fair of us to ask that, right? Like, with the response that we've gotten, we know, I think all 7 of us up here know we can't make that big of an ask. And so the idea then for me, as we're sitting and hearing from the steering team, knowing that Northeast is like #1 top priority, that was where, like, how do we do this creatively? Like, if we are going to ask for even, you know, 1.5 mils, that money that we generate, that our community is being generous enough to give to us, we need to make sure that whatever building we build is flexible and usable in a multitude of ways. And if the community says status quo right now, like if we, because we're about to send this survey out, and if the community says status quo, you got to keep 2 high schools, you got to, you know, do a 6 through 8 building, that's the only thing that we're willing to do, then the narrative, like, we've had this creative conversation of, well, where do we build it? Because if we build it on the current Northeast site, right, and just take down what's there and put up a new building, then we've strapped ourselves in with millions of dollars to keeping things the same. And that, to me personally, both as a voter, as a visionary, as somebody who's phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, that building, even if you expand it into, you know, something else, it doesn't connect with anything. And so that was where the idea, well, what if we build this 6 through 8 building as a multi-purpose building that could in some way shift and put it closer to where the current Midland High is, so that when we do decide, or when we need to make a decision to unify, that we've done something that is multifaceted in a way that is flexible and creative and forward thinking, and yet gives people the time that they need to get to where potentially we want to go. So I think it's such a huge, all of this, we know, I mean, we've been sitting, it's a huge ask to go out for any mills at this point. Like, you know, I mean, we watched what happened on, you know, May 5th, right, with across our state, you know, and knowing that it's a big ask of our community, but also knowing, one, we have a future to look at, as well as infrastructure needs that we have to take care of. We don't have any other way but with community support forward. So the survey that's coming out, like, that's coming, postcards are coming out. We're just really hopeful that the community will be open-minded, and that we'll get some feedback in regards to, like, how much room there is to veer from status quo. Because I think with that investment, it has to be something that doesn't lock us in. So.
Yeah, if I could, just to build on what Alicia said and what you just said, is, I mean, the group is, and again, the people we spoke to, the need of Northeast to come offline, so to speak, people are very much aligned to that. I mean, I would even say different than where we were a year ago. More and more people that I talk to versus a year ago are there now. But I just want to go back to what Alicia said, which is making that big jump now. I don't think we're not gonna get the support that we need. We need to get, we need to get a win on the board. And then what you were saying, Jennifer, though, is that gets to the helping people see where we're going. And even though it's just, I mean, it's not really subtle, but it's showing people, hey, this is the direction we got to move, so they can just kind of get their heads around it. It's just like the, examples of, can the different groups start doing things together? Again, it just helps people kind of get their head around it.
So if we do the same thing again, like we build Northeast on Northeast property, how, I guess from your perspective, because you guys have been out in the community hearing opinions and hearing the opinions of your steering committee members, how does that move us forward? It is, to Jen's point, just maintaining the status quo. We have a new building, which we desperately need.
Stephen, I'm going to loft this to you. But one of the things that we have talked about several times at the steering committee meetings are if and as we put something forward, how is whatever we put forward flexible? And we continue to hear, yes, whatever is built with thought for the future, not just for the needs of today. But that's all the expertise I feel like I can add to that. So you're up.
I mean, that's part of the bigger picture. If there is a building that is put on Northeast campus right now that is used as 6-8, it's knowing, okay, what does that building become when there's a unified high school? Is that a 7-8 building? Okay, if that's going to be a 7-8 building, I need to make sure I plan that building well enough so that I can put an addition onto that to accommodate all 7-8 students. Or is it going to be a 5-6? Same discussion if it's going to be a 5-6 building. It's just thoughtfully designing that from the start of knowing where it's going to end up in the future. And so I think, in building a building there, it has the most broad options that could happen at the end of the day. Because you could do 7-8 there, you could do 5-6 there. You could then, do a unified high school on just the, Midland High proper site, but then, what happens with some of these other buildings? But you open up some possibilities in other buildings that may not be opened up in the same way. But if the long-term goal is a unified high school on the MHS site, then building that there is helping you make that first step.
So I'm going to push one step further. If that building were to be built on the Northeast site and becomes either a 5-6 building or a 7-8 building in the future, then what does that leave us with Jefferson and Dow?
Right. Then you have, in the future, you're making a decision today that you're keeping those options open for the future, but you could utilize those buildings any way you want in the future. If you realize the need is too great at Jefferson to keep it, then, is Jefferson part of the long-term plan or is it not part of the long-term plan? Do you could creatively use Jefferson and say, Siebert is overcrowded, but Jefferson is bigger. Does Jefferson now become a K-5 building? Building on the Northeast site doesn't necessarily narrow in on where the long-term plan or, long-term vision is. It kind of keeps all of these options on the table.
So I'll push on that a little bit because from my perspective, if we build on the Northeast site, I personally, if the Midland High campus becomes a unified campus, that property is less than a mile away, which if it doesn't have a building on it anymore, becomes perfect access for some athletic facilities that are within walking distance for students, so we don't have to worry about transporting them. So I feel like if we put a building there, we lock ourselves in a different way, as opposed to building the building closer to the Midland High campus, giving it the flexibility to maybe become a CTE hub or something like that at a future date, and leaving that property at Northeast accessible for an expansion of campus in a way that putting a building there couldn't. By putting the building, Ann brought up some really great points. By putting the middle school building near the high school building, just to start there, the security pieces of that, having one campus from 6 to 12 to secure is way different than having a separate campus for Northeast. So we're hitting those safety and security needs as well as the flexibility for future needs. So we're just throwing it all out there tonight.
So turn it over to this side of the table, Scott, Brad, Becky.
I agree with exactly what Jen just said. I think I really like that. And you and I have had this conversation before. That, in my view, is forward thinking. And I keep coming back to, what we just talked about a little bit earlier is 5 years minimum for any kind of significant structure. So if not now, when? right? We're always going to have that issue to face, and we've got to, as a community, pull a trigger eventually and soon. That's all. I would have made comments similar to yours, but that's all I wanted to say. I really like the idea of the future use of that northeast site for anything, keeping those options open.
So I've been taught never to ask a question I don't know the answer to. But I'm going to ask a question I don't know the answer to. Amy and Alicia, do you think, based on your conversations, that if we educated the community over the next 2 years about potential loss of programming at high schools, the benefits to a single high school, that we could teach our community enough so that maybe they don't love the idea of a community high school, but they would be accepting of a community high school because they would see the benefits outweigh, I don't want to say the risks because it's not risk, but the positive outweigh the negative of maintaining 2 separate high schools.
I don't feel comfortable, saying yes or no. To flip your question just a bit, I don't think you could get there by November. I don't think there's any way that narrative and education can happen within a short amount of time. I think there would have to be a lot of thought put forward about how are you educating the community and going back, again, not to use a very small sample size to represent perspective of the entire community, but when we hear things like the transparency, what's in it for my child, what's in it for me as an individual, how is education built around that with whatever those next steps are? I don't know if that answers it, but that's the gut reaction I have.
Yeah, I don't think you can put a time frame on it, but I mean, your 2-year mark, I think, is pretty realistic. It's going to take time, and it's going to take a lot of conversation, a very focused effort, more than just the 15 people that I mentioned earlier. I think we can get there. I do believe we can, but it's just going to take a lot of time, a lot of examples, a lot of people kind of seeing what that looks like and trying to help them, feel what that looks like. People that are worried about losing opportunities, when it comes to athletics. And I tend to gravitate toward athletics because that's my passion and where my kids spend their time. But, helping people understand, like today at Midland High, since my son was a freshman, we haven't had a freshman baseball team. And he was a freshman in 2021. We haven't had a freshman or a JV girls softball team in, I think, longer than that. So same freshman girls basketball. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So I think if we just helped people understand, I think Scott might have said this, is just instead of being fearful of what might happen, is kind of flipping that to say what would be the opportunities. More clubs. And one interesting dialogue we did have at the steering committee was there are kids out there that don't want to compete in that way. They don't want to be the star quarterback. They don't want to be the point guard. They don't want to be the star pitcher or whatever, the lead in the play. They don't want that. They want, I just want to be with a club and play a pickup game or what have you. So I think that's really important to remember too, is there's differing needs of our students for both, schooling, athletics, performing arts. Not everybody is after the same thing. And so giving more opportunity is something I think we can do if we go in this direction. But just to close, it's going to take a long time.
Brad, Mackey?
Thank you very much for all the hard work you've done so far. And I know I've been through it for the last handful of years of doing what you did personally with this group. It's very difficult because there are huge opinions in every room you go into. And it's their perspective, and you have to take that piece and add it in and try to balance it all out. I love all the work that you've done of showing us the boxes and what can happen. What I'm really leaning or looking for, you have this 33 cents to 99 cents per day, and we haven't addressed that in the same manner of what you get from the 33 cents to the 99 cents. I understand it's 1 to 3 mil sinking fund. I think that is just as important or more important to many of our taxpayers. And I think it is our duty to show them what is 1 mil, what is 2 mil, 3 mil, or whatever increments you'd like to present, so we know what of these items are going to get fulfilled from that sinking fund option. I believe the sinking fund has to be there. I believe it will pass, presented properly. I believe that the community will support it, because the items listed on here are not wants, but needs, period. So you were comparing a 3.6 mil, $278 million bond at $1.19 a day. But we also have the flip side of what is a 3 mil sinking fund at 99 cents a day, and what can that deliver to the public, and what boxes can we check in those increments? That's the tough part. I think what you've done so far with the actual bond millage is phenomenal and presented in a visual, clear way. But our potential sinking fund, I know it has to be approved. I'd like to remove the word potential, because I think the sinking fund has to occur because it checks so many boxes for the people in this room and the people in the public. So I know you've been focusing so much of your energy on trying to figure out this portion. I have a huge need, and the public has a huge need for the part that's got the dashed lines around it. Yeah. So I know it's not an easy job. Your time's limited. I understand that. But we do need to have feedback. What does it deliver between the 1 to 3 mil, so that we can start talking to the public equally about these other pieces? Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if there's just a couple scenarios, if it's 1, 2, and 3, because of time constraint or whatever, something delivered back so that we have a full page. I know it adds a lot to your matrix, but we need a full page. Sorry, I know that you've done so much already, but that part is really needed.
Yeah, and that is part of our finally, landing that plane of what that first step is, of gathering all of this feedback and, bringing together that final recommendation is recognizing, what does that sinking fund for that first step look like as well.
Yeah.
In the community survey, is there questions, and I'm not sure who I'm even asking this to, I think maybe Penny or Katie, questions that should help us from a community standpoint gauge to what people are up for in regards to bond plus sinking fund, either or, and all of the above, correct?
I believe there are. After tonight's conversation, making eye contact with Stephen, I think we need to look at those questions one more time, excuse me, and make sure that they cover the breadth of the discussions tonight. There'll also be some opportunities for open text boxes, so folks can share more details about their insights. And I do believe we have a question specific to a unified single campus high school, which will just help us have a little bit of pulse where we are. So yes, and we need to take another look at that quick.
Becky?
I don't have much, I guess, to add to what's already been said. It's a very difficult time to be asking for money, regardless of what the priorities are, the needs are. It's just a hard scenario to be in. That said, also as a board, we have a responsibility to the district and to try to make decisions that are in the long-term best interest. I appreciate, Jennifer, your suggestion, trying to think creatively of how do we look at an ultimate end goal, but maintain flexibility and try to be a little bit more creative about how we do it. I didn't grow up in Midland. I don't have an emotional reaction to a unified high school. I will say that I visited my dad's house last week. He lives down in Detroit, and there's been a lot of turnover in his neighborhood, and part of that resulted in speed bumps being placed all along his street, one right in front of his house, which means for me when I visit in the front room and in any of the front rooms, every time a car slows down, I look like, why is this person about to turn into my driveway? Are they going to do something to the house? But no, it's just the stupid speed bump that they added to the house. And of course, it's for safety for kids, which I've never seen any kids playing in the front yards of any of those houses. I say this to say I can appreciate having an emotional reaction to change because, I'm not seeing the impact maybe on the kids who do want to play or the parent who has, had to yell their kid out from the middle of the street because a car's going too fast. But I do get annoyed that now I have to be super vigilant when I'm looking out the window because all the cars are stopping or slowing down in front of my dad's house. So I appreciate that there might take time for some people to even be open to hear about a unified campus, but I hope, as you guys mentioned, hearing what could be the outcomes and the experience for the students, and then also for those who don't have as much invested in the student outcomes, but the outcomes and the experience for the district budget long term, which I do think is something that we heard was really important through this process and the last process as well. I'm hopeful that we can have those discussions and get to a point where folks can see this would be a good thing long-term for our community.
So I might try and summarize and then look to my board members for help on direction. I think it's clear that we have to continue to responsibly invest in the assets that we have. And as Brad pointed out, that conversation really focuses around a sinking fund. And then we have assets that are at the end of life, and we have really complicated communication challenges to work through. And I wonder if we threw out a straw man to the facility team and said, what would it look like if we did a sinking fund now? So a sinking fund proposal in November of 26, somewhere 1 to possibly 3 mils, but probably 1 to 2, and then had this robust community conversation around what would a bond look like in like November of 27, so that we've got 6 months to talk about patching roofs, fixing HVAC, buying buses with a sinking fund, and then you've got 18 months to talk about what a bond would look like with consideration for what does it look like today and what will it look like in 5 to 8 years. Is that reasonable kind of guidance from the board? I'll look to the other 6 board members.
I think it's a reasonable question. I'm not saying I'm sold on the plan.
No, I want the feedback.
I think
it's just a straw man for what I think I've kind of heard around the table.
I think it's a hard thing to ask the community for money and then ask them for money again, right? One after the other. I mean, we do have to have a phased approach in regards to what this looks like from a millage increase, and how then do we talk about maintaining that 10, 15, 20 years from now in order to keep moving forward. I'm not opposed,
to splitting it, but I also think that we have a building need, which requires a bond, and two, we have an infrastructure need, which requires a sinking fund, and neither one of those really can be kicked down the road any further than, but it is a hard ask to put them both on the same ballot as well. So we saw that with one district. It just on May 5th, so.
The other side of that coin is for 20 years after the passage of Proposal A, we didn't have any debt. And when we went out in 2014, we knew that we needed, that Northeast was the missing piece of that puzzle. So we didn't ask for any debt for 20 years. Then we asked for less than we knew we needed. And now we're paying for it. I don't want to waste money. I get it. I've heard all the concerns about how much things cost, but we deferred and we deferred and we deferred, and deferring hasn't gotten us anywhere, except even bigger needs. So
That's a great point, John. And I think that the folks who've deferred maybe in the past probably assumed it would be a better scenario down the road and easier. And, and of course, here we are. And yeah.
I think our facilities, our MPS facilities team, as well as Clark and Three Rivers and GMB will all kind of look at us and go, I'm sorry, what do you want to do to Northeast? Do you want to patch the roof again? So I think we have to keep that in mind, that at some point patching is no longer an option, and maybe we have to get super duper creative wherein we take a school offline and we're not building anything. I mean, in one of the community engagement sessions that I was at, that question was asked, what happens if we do nothing? You know, what are we looking at in 10 to 20 years? And it's a really different picture than what we're capable of offering now. I mean, even in 5 years, if we go, like Alicia was saying, if we go in November and it's a no again, that means that, like Anne's saying, we, the 7 of us, then are stuck with making some really hard choices that people are probably not going to like a lot more than a unified high school. So I mean, and I hate that. Like, I hate that we even have to say that out loud, because that's not a position that this community has ever faced. We have been sitting for 50 years in a place of privilege, and being able to offer all the options and all the athletics and all the clubs and the dual enrollment and amazing musical programs and so much, and to even contemplate what our district would look like without any of those things just breaks my heart. And so trying to figure out the balance of what this looks like as a reasonable ask that we can unify around. You know, I mean, Amy, I think you were at one of the, like, what does it look like to really, truly come together as a community and support our schools? And to go into whatever this is in November in a way that people have felt heard, that we are responding to the fact that it is really hard economic times, and yet still be a community that rallies around our students and wants to give them the very best thing in the most creative, fiscally responsible, transparent stewardship, safe way that we possibly can. And I think, I really hope that between last May and this moment right now, that every single member of our community understands that that's what we're trying to do. This is not a bait and switch. It's not a we want the moon. This is we have needs, and we hope that we can come together to meet them.
Well, thank you for everything, and thank you for spending your night with us. I know it's been a lot of work, and yep, Stephen, you and I can catch up offline as well and continue to push forward. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies.
Item number 4, a request to address the board. First up, I had Don Hinkle. Welcome, Don.
Evening, I'm Don Hinkle. Last month I was talking about security and it stopped midway, and so I'd kind of like to finish that. So I have a pet peeve, and my pet peeve, I have a lot of pet peeves probably, but my single pet peeve is if there's a disaster, could be school shooting, could be a fire, could be anything, to hear the politicians, somebody say, well, we need to study this and see what we can learn from it, which is really saying we didn't plan for it and now it's caught us and we'll probably assign it to a committee and never hear from it again. Okay, so that's just me. So a favorite leadership scripture out of the Old Testament is in Psalms 29, where there is no vision, the people perish. Security is a vision issue. And it's not an easy issue, as you've seen here. It's a big deal. I said last month that there's two paradigms. Are we educators and, oh yeah, we got to keep them safe, or since we've got them, do we keep them safe and then also educate them? And I've got 3 grandchildren, and daughter works in the school part-time, and know people, maybe a dozen more kids in the school, so I'm a security first kind of guy. So unfortunately, we were at Central Auditorium for a band choir concert, and my wife leaned over and says, I hate to say this, but what would stop somebody from coming in and shooting the place up? The answer was nothing. The same thing if you're at Jefferson for their things. I mean, the school's wide open. So I don't know if anybody, it was before my time, so I'm sure it's before your time, but the worst school disaster, I believe, was in Bath, Michigan in the 1920s. Worse than any of the shootings going on now. A member of the school board got mad, didn't get elected, and so he put explosives underneath the school and blew up part of the school, killed a whole bunch of people. The other part, I think I read 500 pounds, didn't go off. And so, but then filled his car up and drove his car in and blew up the car, took out, I think, the superintendent and a child that had survived the first bombing but didn't make the second bombing. So those are the kinds of things, we don't think about so much as happening. Because we don't really have that issue now, doesn't mean that it shouldn't be something that should be considered, sorry. So,
Hey, Don, you can always email us and follow up with me anytime.
That's probably smarter. I write better than I talk. So.
I'm also happy to have a phone call anytime.
Okay.
Thanks,
Great.
Don.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next on the list was Stephen Carver. Stephen, welcome.
Good evening. Good evening. Yeah, my name's Steve Carver. We can go back to kindergarten. I think you have a poem that I wrote yesterday, actually, regarding kindness in kindergarten. My background is in education. I was a kindergarten teacher many years ago, taught also a principal of 2 schools, not in this area. I am new to the Midland area. Can you hear me okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Last fall, saw an advertisement for the Lunchbox Learners put forth by Big Brothers and Big Sisters. Went through the process, pretty involved vetting process and so forth. finally hooked me up. They said, okay, Central Park is where we're going to have you go with third graders. And just once a week. And, you know, they bring their lunch. I will tell you that lunch is not always eaten. Grammarly correct? Eaten. It's not consumed. But I think, you know, our role is to, you know, read. And the little guy I work with has a special education teacher that recommended more just as emotional support, which I pretty much have no difficulty doing. Can we have a show of hands, just for the heck of it? Who's been in the kindergarten room this year? I mean, it doesn't have to be Central Park. Any, do we have any kindergarten former teachers? Oh. I did meet Penny. I don't know if you remember me, in the hallway. I think it was last fall, and kind of told you what we're doing. I've also met Mickey. I don't think she remembers me, but you had an event at your house. Was that last summer? Yeah, and I'm still very supportive of that person that, you know, was there representing. So, you know, I'm going to read this poem to you because I think this tells, it's called Kindergarten Kindness. And it starts off with a quote from a Neil Young song many years ago. It says, I am a child, I last a while, you can't conceive of the pleasure in my smile. And it goes on from there. Here's the part that I wrote. The calendar on the wall indicates it is late May, and all I want to do is play. Sometimes I create with clay before the end of the day, and on occasion with my teacher's dismay. Now, remember, this is from the perspective of a 5 or 6-year-old. I began my formal education journey with my classmates in the classroom and playgrounds, full of fear and cheer. I arrived as a 5-year-old with plenty of curiosity, laughter, imagination, innate intuition. I made many new little friends to explore and create throughout our kindergarten year. We were instructed to raise our small hands, ask questions, and share with the band. I learned to use inside voices and listen for direction to avoid any misconception. You want me to finish?
I'll be more than happy to pass this out, and we'll just keep to our time. But thank you for all you do, and thank you for volunteering with the schools.
I will say it's a highlight of my week. I'm involved in other things politically, and when I leave there, and this is 2 or 3 times a week, and this is Central Park, I always come away energized, even though they're little. Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else like to address the board at this time? Welcome, Joe.
I wasn't going to speak tonight, and I wrote most of this before, Bill, you made your remarks. I'm glad to hear some of the comments I heard about the effects of May 4th and the learnings of May 4th. Saginaw's 0 for 3 after the union spending 10 times as much money as they did last time. So it's not really a matter of it's how you sell it. Historically, you guys lost the sinking fund in 2013, not this board, a previous board, except for Scott. And you didn't do anything for a couple of years. You didn't buy a bus for 6 years. You dug a big hole. And you had the 2015 bond, which then wasted a whole lot of money on consumables, the famous zombie buses that you are dead long after you're still paying for them because you're paying all that money on interest. So my suggestion is do not dig another hole. As was mentioned, a minimum for November is a sinking fund so that you can take all that consumable stuff, the buses, the computers, the printers, the servers, which are all going to die in due time, and fix some roofs and just get all that stuff off so you can write a clean bond that has a defined scope next November or whenever the right time is for that. And I agree with the statements, selling the one high school. I mean, I'm tired of hearing you guys talk about having to have redundancies and equivalencies between 2 buildings and all, and wasting all that money to do things that are not optimized at all. But we have the cheerleaders who have to have the blue versus the green and all that stuff. I'm okay with that at a college level, not a high school level. The other part, which is foresightful, which you have said more foresightful things, you've got the 2015 bond decaying. You may add a 2027 bond on top of that, which will go up to some max number bond documents with coming. Having us to talk about, we're not going to come back for another 5 years after that one passes. As 2015 decays, we can add one on top of that and still stay below some level. Because if you add and you add and you keep going up, the second one will fail worse than last May, because they will probably trust you one more time, but not twice. So that's my off-the-cuff version. I didn't type. Ooh, 20 seconds left.
Thanks, Joe. Suzanne, I saw you put your hand up.
I wasn't planning to do this either, so, but I didn't want to leave the room without addressing some of the points and questions and interests you guys had tonight. You're aware of a model that I built on a sinking fund. I've been expanding on that because in the last community engagement meeting, it was evident we had to look down the road at what the long-term plan is. And so we are threading a very small needle. I know that from the analysis that I've done. We have a rocky road ahead of us. This uncertain times, we haven't hit the peak of that yet. We don't know when that's going to change. So I feel it is necessary to understand, not that we have to do it, but understand what the most conservative, doable path is that makes us successful. And so I can tell you there is a way to do a sinking fund. There is a way to do a bond one that keeps us below 6.2 mils. There is a way to do a net zero bond two and address our critical year 1 to 3 facility assessment priorities, address Northeast closure, address unified high school within 5 to 8 years, and answer to so many of the expectations I'm hearing in the community meetings. I write them all down. We can always do more, but I feel like it's so important that we understand the minimum, and that, I think, is the starting point for the right conversations with the community, because we're kind of bouncing around. We haven't done, and that analysis, it's just me so far. I would love to work on that with somebody, with some people, because I'm telling you, it is a small needle and some due diligence is required.
Thanks, Suzanne. Anybody else want to address the board? Bill?
I just want to say I really appreciate the insight and the depth of the conversation from the board tonight. I was really pleased to hear it because we're really looking for solutions, and I heard some really good questions and stuff, so I want to compliment what I heard today. I also want to say that at the community outreach session, something that Member Horowitz said really struck me. He says, we look ahead. We cannot as a community afford not to go to one high school. And when you said that, I was like, okay, everything else I was thinking about, that was a key. Because if you fix that North Star and you fix what we have to do, because we can't afford it. You look at our community's base, you know, our famous industrial base is atrophying at a very fast rate, and I think it's going to atrophy enough in the next couple months and stuff to even be more striking. So I agree that we need to go ahead and do this sinking fund. I mean, you do a 2 mil sinking fund and you identify, here's a list of what we're going to use that for, not just we need a sinking fund for repairs. If you give an itemized list, here's what we're going to do. I like that. And you'll get that support. You'll get that 2 mil. Let's go for the guaranteed income, because I think that is a for sure thing you can do. And the next thing is, okay, if we have that North Star set, you know, I know we're going to have phase 1, 2, 3, 4, so we can't keep coming back for more and more bond. But if we have this roadmap that's detailed, I think that, like you said, let's make sure that we sell it based on milestones that people can look at. We're not buying a vision, we're buying a detailed plan, like we're buying a home. We know how many bathrooms, we know how many what the basement's like. So I just encourage you to keep that up, but go for the sinking fund. And let's go ahead and keep going on these questions, because those questions you asked, I think, are very, very important. But I just wanted you to know that I thought it was very good that you were asking those questions in this meeting, and I appreciated it. And I wish we could find something good, but let's go for the win, and let's go ahead and keep on this path for the future. And thank you for what you said, because it was very, very insightful, and it affected how I thought of it. So thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Anybody else? Okay. Item number 5, administrative services, and I have study committee meeting minutes for those. Members, this meeting was on May 13th. Members present were myself as chair, Jen Ringgold, John Lauterbach, Penny Miller-Nelson, guest president Sarah Dooley. Meeting started at 10:30 a.m. Cell phone legislation was discussed first. The committee discussed policy considerations regarding new wireless communication device cell phone legislation. Additional information will be studied at the next committee meeting. A policy update will be recommended this summer in preparation for the 26-27 school year. Policy 5409, academic credits. The committee discussed recommended modifications to reflect the graduation requirements for the Midland Flex Learning Center programs. The recommended changes will be brought to the board in June. Policy 2504, public participation at board meetings. The committee discussed the administration's recommended policy update to require members of the public to state their name and whether or not they are a district resident rather than their address. This recommended policy change will be brought to the May board meeting. The committee also discussed modifications to the public comment language in the board agenda packet. The change reflects an interest in creating an inviting environment for members of the public to make their comments at the board meetings. Item 4, volunteers and student non-curricular clubs. The committee discussed the role of volunteers in student clubs and reviewed policy 5520, student-initiated non-curricular clubs, and policy 3105, visitors and volunteers. The meeting adjourned at 11:37. Item 5.2 for action, policy 2504, revision. Penny.
As noted in those meeting minutes, we are bringing forth a recommendation for a small modification to this policy. Under B1, it previously stated that before addressing the board, a member of the public would state their name and address, and our recommendation is that we strike address and that a member of the public would just simply state their name and whether they reside in the district. As a quick side note, we do want to ensure that we're collecting information from those who make public comments so that we can follow up with them after the meeting if need be. So if folks don't sign in on the clipboard, then Sarah and I have talked about how we can make sure that we get their name and contact information if they're willing to share that for follow-up. So it's just that one change from address to whether they reside in the district.
Is there a motion to approve item 5.2?
Second.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by Mackey. I didn't know who said it first. Member Craig. Any discussion or questions on 5.2? I'll just state thank you for bringing this up, Penny. One of the things that we were really trying to do is just make sure that we are an inviting board to communicate with. And also just want to remind the public that we all have email addresses. So if If you need to talk about something personal, please reach out and engage that way as well. But multiple ways to engage with the board in addition to speaking publicly. All in favor of approving item 5.2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 6, request to address the board regarding public hearing on proposed revisions to instruction in sex education. Remember, we had informed the public of new content or new videos last time, and those were made available. Would anybody like to address the board on that item? Okay. Item number 7, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. Jen, I think you have study committee meeting minutes?
Yes, I have study committee meeting notes from 2 meetings. Just a quick note in the agenda packet for the April 20th, instead of notes, the agenda was attached. So we will be, I have the notes to share, and then we'll be updating that in the minutes to reflect for that change. So the Curriculum Instruction Assessment Study Committee met on April 20th. Members present were myself, Ann Horowitz, Mecky Craig, Ken Weaver, Penny Miller-Nelson, and we had guest presentations from Volosny Marugan, Jen Lennon, Keith Siebert, Sarah Wright, and Joy Yang Yao. Volosny, Jen, Keith, and Sarah presented to the board on Magma Math software that is being piloted at Northeast, and we got to visit a classroom visit, seeing that in action. Joy presented on student and family engagement activities for both March and April, and then we took some time as a committee to discuss strategic and facilities planning. That meeting adjourned at 2:45 on April 20th. I then have meeting minutes from May 6th. Members present on May 6th were myself, Ann Horowitz, Mecky Craig, Ken Weaver, Penny Miller-Nelson, and Anna Womack. We also had guest presentation from Stephen Gunther from GMB. We met here at the administration building, started at 3 o'clock. The admin team is working on a full strategic plan, and we'll be sharing more with the board once that's complete. The committee then discussed the facilities assessment and the work of the facilities steering team and information gathered at the previous community engagement sessions. That meeting adjourned at 4:30.
Thanks, Jen. Item 7.2 for action, sex education curriculum resource adoption. Ken.
Yeah, we had the public comment period twice now, and we have up for adoption the 2 videos. We looked at the 5th grade curriculum, went through the sex ed advisory board, and now we're to the point where we're looking for adoption by the board for the 2 videos, one for boys, one for girls for 5th grade maturation units.
Do I have a motion to approve item 7.2?
So moved to approve the sex education curriculum resource.
Support. Motion by Ringgold, support by McFarland. Any further discussion or questions?
I will just say, having viewed, not previewed, one of the videos, I was actually shocked at how little sex education has changed since I was in school, which I think some people will take comfort in.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of item 7.2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Yeah, motion carries. Item 7.3 for action, staff and curriculum development proposals. Ken.
Yeah, last month we presented the staff and curriculum development proposals. You have a list of them, and they are on the agenda as well too. These are development proposals that will take place mostly over the summer, some into the school year, and they help with different initiatives that we have ongoing in the curriculum instruction and assessment department.
Do I have a motion to approve item 7.3?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by McFarland. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving item 7.3, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Item 7.4 for information textbook adoption. Ken.
Yeah, we have 3 textbooks tonight that are being presented for adoption in a month. One is for IB Psych, SL. The other ones are for Biology A, the accelerated course, and Biology. And as well, the last one is for the IB Analysis and Approaches, HL1, Pre-Calc, H, and IB Analysis and Approaches, SL1, Pre-Calc A. That's a mouthful to put on any course requests, I'm sure. So these will be up here at the district office for a month. Anybody that wants to come in and view them and look at them and look them over may do so. And in a month, we'll be coming back and asking for their adoption and then purchasing from that point.
Thanks, Ken. Item 7.5 for information, special education co-teaching model. Ken.
Yeah, we have, since we had first put forth these staff development proposals, we had an additional one that got presented. As you may or may not know, we are going to a co-taught model for our special education classes. This is where we have 2 professional teachers in a classroom with a class that may have a little bit higher number of special education students mixed among general ed. A lot of times this happens just regardless, but in this case, there will be 2 qualified individuals in the classroom to support the kids. This has been shown through research the best way for all the kids to learn, not just the general ed. I mean, it's very important that you have 2 very highly qualified individuals in the classroom to help individualize needs. So you have 2 teachers with about, anywhere from 25 to 30 kids. It helps with controlling student engagement as well, too, and behavior in the classroom. And it also has been shown to have the best results for special education students specifically as well too, because exposure to the high expectations and the curriculum, the gen ed curriculum that is found in those classes with that teacher expertise that happens with an individual, a gen ed teacher that is certified in that is just extremely valuable for all kids, but especially the special ed kids as we're trying to hold them to the same standards and graduate with the same diploma, and we want to do what's best for all kids at all times. And so we have a small staff development proposal to help with the co-teaching and help teachers adjust. We did a presentation, or we did it last year. We had we brought in a presenter that came in and worked with a group of special education and general education teachers. This is kind of a follow-up building off of that material. We're going to look at some PLC time during like once a month with the teachers to get them to some time to work together and discuss different techniques. There's quite a bit involved into making a co-teaching situation, and there's many different models of co-teaching as well too, and trying to get those to work as productively as possible and help them and give them time to work and plan and stuff like that.
Thanks, Ken.
Yep.
I'll just attest to the fact that last year, my son had a student in his classroom that was utilizing the co-taught model, and it was amazing to see how much respect there was given by the gen ed students to our special education students, and it was just a really neat experience as a parent to see our kid's teacher talk to the class about the needs of that child, and it just moved on. The other kiddos in the classroom just accepted it, and his brain works a little bit differently, and we help him out from time to time. And it's so much different to see how our special education students perform comparative to when we were kids and going through. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8.1, Finance, Facilities, and Operations Study Committee meeting notes from May 4th.
Saving the best for last. Finance, Facilities, and Operations Study Committee meeting notes. We met on May 4th at 5 o'clock. Members present were myself, Scott McFarland, Jen Ringgold, Penny Miller-Nelson, Brian Bruton, and Anna Womack. Guests present were Kevin Bushy from Clark Construction, Mike Mogenberg from Midland Public Schools. We met here at the Administration Center. We discussed March financials were reviewed. The proposed MFP contract was reviewed. Administration will propose awarding a bid for Chromebook power stations. Administration will propose awarding a bid for pest management services. Administration will propose awarding a bid for reflooring the Midland High Auxiliary Gym. And updates to the district's health insurance offerings and 27L2 stipends were discussed. The committee discussed the status of moving robotics to the Fast Ice building. The administration team is developing the full strategic plan, which will be shared with the board once completed. The committee discussed the facilities assessment, the work of the facility steering committee, and information gathered at the community engagement sessions. The meeting adjourned at 6:30 p.m.
Thanks, Brad. Item 8.2 for action, Midland County ESA 26-27 budget. Anna.
Tonight, you are asked to consider approval of the Midland County ESA budget. This budget supports critical countywide services that benefit students across our region, including special education, career and technical education, and other shared educational supports. Administration has reviewed the proposed budget, and it reflects continued collaboration to meet student needs throughout Midland County. The proposed 26-27 budget reflects a stable financial outlook for Midland County ESA, with both the general fund and special education funds maintaining positive ending fund balances while continuing to support core instructional and student services. The general fund projects a modest operating surplus, while the special education fund maintains a healthy reserve position to support ongoing student needs and required services. In addition, estimated special education billbacks to local districts are projected to be approximately $500,000 lower than originally estimated for 25-26.
Thanks, Anna. Do I have a motion to approve item 8.2?
So moved. Support.
Motion by Horowitz, support by Ringgold. Any discussion or questions on the ESA budget?
Requires a roll call vote, right? Does this require a roll call? It does not.
I think it's only advisory in nature. Isn't
Okay. All right.
it? All in favor of approving 8.2, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item 8.3 for action, power station purchase. Anna.
Administration recommends approving a purchase order to Inacomp TSG of Southfield, Michigan for $128,480 for charging equipment for every elementary school classroom. This equipment includes 292 EarthWalk 16-port USB-C PD power stations. Each station will ensure that student Chromebooks remain charged and ready for daily instruction. The pricing provided by Inacomp TSG was secured through the RIMSI Save Bid, ensuring compliance with board purchasing policy. If approved, the expenditure will be paid for through Series 3 bond funds.
Thanks, Anna. Is there a motion for item 8.3?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by Ringgold. Any discussion or questions on the power station purchases?
I have a question. If we are in the process of currently examining our Chromebook use, especially at the elementary and middle school level, why are we investing $128,000 in Chromebook charging stations for every classroom right now?
We're still going to need the Chromebooks for testing, NWA, and there's other interventions and so forth on them. And this will get them from the kids having to carry them around or anything like that and put them in an organized, small, kind of, it sits on a shelf, like a bookshelf, and allows them to be charged and won't leave the rooms. And that's what we're looking at with elementary, is that the Chromebooks, I mean, I don't want to predict where we're going before the group gets together, the tech usage group and everything else, but we're getting ready to really have the devices stay at the school so that they're ready to be used when they are needed and valuable towards education, and that's what the tech usage group will be working on as well, too. So we need to have a a manner in which to charge those without having cords all over and everything else. And bigger carts that used to be there in the schools and stuff. So that's why we're looking at it now.
But hypothetically, if we don't need them in the classroom every day, they could be charging at a more centralized location at each elementary school.
I think with our utilization issues at elementary, we likely don't have a shared space. So the classroom is the right space. And that way they are more accessible. To Ken's point, and I have this in my updates at the end, the Technology Use Committee or work group that will be forming will grapple with some of these things. The truth is we do have some of our curriculum, Project Lead the Way in particular, that is delivered using Chromebooks, so having them in proximity in the classroom. But to all the points Ken said, 100%, and this also ensures that they are in a more controlled space with more deliberate teacher-directed use of those when needed.
Personally, I think this is long overdue. I'm super excited to see this happen. Also think that it's a step towards not relying on families to charge them, reducing our loss of charging cords, and minimizing that transportation back and forth for breakage and repair and maintenance and all those things. So,
yeah, all of those factored into the decision at this time to look at the carts or these caddies, I guess they're called, basically, and they are small enough to fit. If you've ever been in, as you all have, in elementary classrooms, it's pretty tight in a lot of these classrooms, and so they will fit on a table not very much shorter than this right here, about half. So,
all right, thanks, Ken. All in favor of approving item 8.3, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Item 8.4 for action, pest management bid. Anna.
Bids were solicited and a tabulation has been provided for integrated pest management. Administration recommends issuing a purchase order to the low bidder, Orkin, of Saginaw, Michigan for $11,825. Operating funds will be utilized for this purchase.
Thanks, Anna. Is there a motion for item 8.4?
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by McFarland. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving item 8.4, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Item 8.5 for action, gifts totaling $6,000. Anna.
We have one item tonight totaling $6,000 that will require your acceptance on behalf of the board. This item is a donation from Three Rivers Corporation to Central Park Elementary for support for their Odyssey of the Mind team. We would request that you approve accepting the gifts this evening.
Is there a motion for item 8.5?
Support. Second.
Motion by Horowitz, support by Ringgold. Any further discussion or questions? All in favor of approving item 8.5, say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, item 8.6 for information, gifts totaling $11,915.72. Anna.
The total amount of gifts listed for information only tonight is $11,915.72. These gifts this evening represent support for programs ranging from robotics teams at Jefferson and Dow High, BPA at Midland High, and more. As is tradition, all donors are going to be recognized in the credits of this evening's broadcast and also through board correspondence upon your behalf. We are grateful for our community support of our students and our programs.
Thanks, Anna. Item 9 is Human Resources, 9.1 HR Study Committee notes from May 8th.
Saving the best for last.
Touche.
So frequent that we have HR.
The Human Resources Study Committee met on May 8th, 2026. Present were myself, Mecky Craig, Scott McFarland, Cynthia Marchese, Penny Miller-Nelson, Kara Stark, and we had Anna Womack as a guest. The meeting started at 9 a.m. We discussed staffing. Administration shared an overview of current staffing vacancies. We discussed recruitment and attraction efforts. Administration highlighted the county-wide career fair and expo that was planned for May 11th at the MPS Administration Building, and we discussed future recruitment opportunities. A legal update was provided on current legal matters. We were updated on the Midland Federation of Paraprofessionals, MFP. We love our acronyms. Administration shared a summary of the tentatively agreed upon contract between MFP and MPS for July 2026 through July 2029. We also discussed healthcare and 27L2. Administration shared an update and timeline about health insurance plans and 27L2. Finally, we discussed strategic planning and facility planning. The committee discussed both the strategic planning process as well as the facility planning process, and we adjourned our meeting at 10:12 a.m.
Thank you. Item 9.2 for information. Kara.
The board and staff extend their deepest sympathy to the family of Linda Fisher, who passed away on April 25th, 2026. Linda joined the MPS team in 1990 and was employed as a paraprofessional at Cook Elementary until her retirement in 2010 with 20 years of service.
Thank you, Kara. Item 10.1 are letters from the Board of Education to the following individuals or organizations listed in your agenda packet. Item 11 are scheduled activities for information on the following dates listed in the agenda packet. Item 12, are there any points of clarification, comments from any board members? 12.2, I'll turn it over to Penny for announcements.
I have just a few, and then Phil, I'll ask you to entertain an extension so that we can go into closed session. First, hot off the press for you all, we just sent a communication to the families of Siebert, Jefferson, and Adams. I think as of right now, we still don't have power in those schools. So our message was simply, we're aware and we're monitoring, and if needed, we may have to close school for those 3 buildings tomorrow. We'll keep you posted on that. Robotics was mentioned earlier today in Fast Ice. I just want to assure you that we are on target and on track. I think the majority of our items and technology are out of that building, and that we've moved into Fast Ice, maybe just a few things remaining. So we've certainly vacated the Wheeler Street property slightly prior to our final deadline, and it sounds like the teams are excited to get settled in over at the new facility. Since technology has been mentioned a couple of times, just a reminder that we are forming a technology use work group. This has been expanded a bit. I think maybe when we started, Ken thought, oh, Penny just wants a little team and we're going to take a look at this. Nope, we're doing the full scale. So a survey has been launched already to parents, guardians, families, and we've had some good uptake. It was just issued on Friday. I think we already have close to 700 responses, which we're over 800 now. We will be issuing a survey to students and to staff as well to gather their input. Building a fairly diverse team of parents and staff who will come together this summer to look at that input through the survey and also use the emerging research that's available about technology use in education and develop some guidelines that we can move forward with. We're looking at those, again, likely lower L, upper L, middle school, high school, knowing that there's some nuance to technology use in those areas. And as Ken said, we don't have a preconceived outcome. We're going to let this work group guide how this unfolds.
Yeah, the only input I would have, Penny, is we have to make sure that we're thinking about the jobs at which and the careers and technology that is going to be available when our students graduate, right? And I was reflecting on an experience just this, I think I texted you a picture actually, Penny.
Yeah.
Now, my son's in 3rd grade, and it was on a Friday night. He's sitting there on his Chromebook. I'm like, what are you doing? It's like, look at this. He's programming, he loves soccer, and he's programming a guy taking a penalty shot on the goalie, and he has to coordinate, he has to type in and calculate the XY coordinates of the goal and where the player's shooting in third grade. Like, he knows how to, and he actually has to drag and drop all the programming, right? And I was just reflecting on, like, I don't know how to do that. I've got college degree, like,
Right.
So I think we have to make sure that, yes, do we have to balance? Absolutely. But we also have to think about what our students are going to be prepared for when they graduate, make sure that they're forward thinking. So I think as we have this committee, I would just ask to make sure that we're educating that committee on what students do with the computers, right?
I think that's a great point.
I also share concerns, but there's a lot of potential.
Yes.
upside.
Penny, I know the survey included questions on the Chromebook usage and then cell phones. Will this working group be looking at will there be different groups looking at those two different issues, or how will that play out?
Yes, thank you. That's a good point. So the technology use group will focus on those guidelines for instructional use and classroom use. And then the cell phones are a slightly different process. Kara's going to lead that group, and we'll be looking similarly at the input we get. The student and staff survey that will go out will have some similar questions tailored to those groups, and then recommendations will come forth. That will require a board policy change, so administration will make a recommendation through our typical policy structure. I have a feeling in this case, we'll want our curriculum group to weigh in along the way, and then, of course, our admin services, and then here to the full board for discussion and decision. The last thing, you all were signing diplomas before this meeting. A reminder that we do have graduation next week. So exciting. Midland High is first this year, followed by Dow High. I think Ann's already predicted we're going to need to probably dress in layers. And just hoping that we can actually have it at Dow Diamond, particularly with the construction happening in front of Midland High. But no doubt that is just a wonderful celebration, and it's fun to see all of you interact with the students and celebrate their success as well. So we're looking forward to that. That's all I have.
Thanks, Penny. Before I read item 13, can I have somebody make a motion to extend the meeting just in case we're not done at 9:30?
How long do we need to extend for? 10 o'clock?
You can do 10. I don't think we'll need that long.
Move to extend till 10.
Support?
Motion by Ringgold, support by Horowitz. Any discussion or questions other than get out of here? All in favor of extending until 10 o'clock, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Begrudgingly. There it is.
All right. Jen, do you want to read 13?
Yeah, sure. I move that we go into closed session for strategy and negotiation connected with the negotiation of a collective bargaining agreement as permitted under MCL 15.268, Section 8(1)(c).
Support.
Motion by Ringgold, support by McFarland. Any discussion? This does require a roll call vote. Jen?
President Roush?
Yes.
Vice President McFarland?
Yes.
Secretary Ringgold is a yes. Treasurer Lauterbach?
Yes.
Member Blasey is absent. Member Craig?
Yes.
And Member Horowitz?
Yes.
We are in closed session.
Go into closed session and then come back out for item 14. Do you have a hard copy?
We're back.
We back? All right. Item 14 for action, consideration of the Midland Federation of Paraprofessionals, MFP contract ratification. Do I have a motion to approve item 14?
I move that we ratify the contract with the Midland Federation of Paraprofessionals.
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by Ringgold. Any discussion or questions? All in favor of approving item 14, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion is approved. Item 15, adjournment. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Lauterbach, support by Horowitz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Meeting adjourned.